If you've seen my videos on me talking about stretching before, you could probably skip this one, but if not, or you want a quick refresher, we're going to talk about two main things when it comes to stretching. And I want to talk about when to stretch and how to stretch. I think runners, and I try and speak more about me personally opposed to putting on anyone else, but when you talk to runners or you see their routines, you at least I have my own opinions on it, and I'm sure people would think the same thing about me. Obviously, I'm just speaking about what works for me. And one of the big mistakes I think that people make with stretching is they do it, well, they don't do it. That's a big mistake, but also they do it before their run. So there's this conversation out there like if you stretch before your run, you are kind of getting the range of motion open too much. Like you don't want to be super loose when you start your run. You want some sort of like stability or tension because you're going to push. But I also think if you were strong enough, it doesn't matter if you stretch beforehand. Maybe there's some limiting points that could be addressed. But I get the point of like if you really stretch out your hamstring and then you go for a run, you're more likely to pull it. Like that kind of makes sense to me. But I think the better way to look at it is you can do a dynamic warm-up beforehand. You have your like what do you call it, leg swings or your butt kickers or high knees, those type of things. And there's a lot of different dynamic warm-ups or stretching, if you will. I think those are better, especially before speed workouts. I don't do them too much, but they make sense to me. The stretching, I think, should come pretty much immediately after the run. And I talk about this with everyone that I talk to running about is I think if you just spent 5 to 7 to 10 minutes after every single run stretching, you're going to feel better throughout the day. Like at least for me, I get pretty tight because I do pretty long runs sometimes before work and then I have to sit at a chair for several hours or drive or whatever or be on a plane. And so I can feel myself just like tightening up. And when I stretch right after my runs, it mitigates that. Obviously, you still have to recover. It's not going to fix everything. You still have to get your nutrition in and sleep to recover properly. But it just helps me feel better throughout the day. Two, I think it prevents potentially some injuries because I have this philosophy that most injuries come from either a lack of strength or lack of mobility. And so if you're constantly getting tight, like it's common with IT band issues, is you don't really roll that out or stretch it out, and so over time you just get tighter and tighter and tighter, and so of course your IT band hurts or your knee hurts because your IT band is pulling on it or whatever it is. And so I think it helps with that, and I think that's a big thing that people can implement. Is the way I look at it for me is I would rather reduce my volume by half a mile or a mile per run to make the time for stretching than run a more of a volume. I want to be well-rounded. I want to be able to run and be flexible and avoid injury and be strong. So I could be running 70 miles a week, but I'm now more around 45, 50 miles a week as I build for a marathon because I also need the time for stretching and strength work. You can do stretching sessions and do yoga. I think that's great. I sometimes do that. But if I run 5 days a week, I stretch for 5 to 10 minutes after every run. That's 50 minutes of stretching. And it also happens to be the time where I'm the warmest, right? I just got finished with a run. A lot of the times when you stretch, you kind of have to warm up into it, like yoga. I'm a certified yoga teacher. You have to warm into your deeper, more intense poses. You can't just go straight into crazy back bend. And even if you've been doing yoga for a while, you still warm up, even if you're super flexible, because you don't want to pull something or whatever can happen when you're cold. And so I'm warm after I finish my run, so I stretch that out. I feel better throughout the day. I reduce my risk of injuries is the way I look at it. So that's one thing. We still have to talk about how to stretch. And I'm sure other people have their philosophies on this. As a certified yoga teacher, I have a particular way that I think is more beneficial, not just for fitness, but for more of that mental, like meditation type of thing. I can feel like the what I'm about to talk about, I see it translate into my daily life at work or when I'm in a conversation or something like that. And it's the idea of breathing through a stretch and having a presence of mind, right? So you can do your whole like sometimes you see runners, they do it like this. They like grab one knee, 1, 2, 3. They do this, 1, 2, 3. They kind of swing a leg around. It doesn't show well on camera, but it's like kind of half-assing stretching. And a dynamic warm-up is different. I'm not talking about that. It's just like I love seeing someone. It's funny. Like I've seen this with friends where like I got my stretching in. That's not really stretching. You have to hold poses, you have to hold stretches a little bit longer. The thing I want to add into that is breathing. And I've noticed this time and time again with yoga is when you're in a pose and you breathe into a spot, and it's kind of interesting to, it's like hard to explain, but you can notice it when you do it, is if I'm holding a pose for a minute, you can feel where it might be the tightest or some areas where it's tight. And if you focus your attention on that point and you like breathe into it is the way I view it, it kind of feels like the muscle expands a little bit and then relaxes into that position. And so I think a part of stretching is sure stretching out the muscle, but it's also learning how to relax it. And if you take a moment, you're watching this video right now, if you think about your shoulders, your traps for a second, your neck, you might notice you're kind of scrunching, and that can just happen from stretch or being, engaged in something. And if you just focus for a second, you might actually be able to relax it more. And you now realize you were holding some tension unnecessarily. And so it's the same thing in a stretch. If I'm stretching my quad, yes, I'm lengthening the muscle, but I'm also realizing I'm subconsciously holding it tighter than it actually needs to be held, right? And so the breathing is helping you learn how to relax that, and I think it deepens the stretch. It's more effective. And so when you're stretching, the encouragement is how you stretch is by focusing on those points and breathing into it. And I don't think you necessarily need to do this to get a stretch. It's just my yoga philosophy, if you will, or the way I've approached stretching. I really like it because one, I'm getting a better stretch and I'm relaxing unnecessary tension. And two, when you meditate, when you breathe, when you're intentional with that kind of stuff, as you do it more and more with repetition, you realize throughout the day places you could be doing that better, right? So because I do it so often, I might be sitting on a Zoom call or something like that, and I'm talking to someone, and because I've done so many repetitions throughout the weeks and months to remind myself to check into the body and see the tension that I'm holding unnecessarily, in that conference call, I can still have that conversation, realize, oh yeah, relax the quads, relax my traps, relax my neck. And I think that's just going to keep you in less of that fight or flight. And I think it's good for the body. Like, we shouldn't be doing this the whole time, right? And I know it's an over exaggeration, but whatever degree you're at, you could probably relax a little bit more, and I think it's just good for you, and it's peaceful. So that's the yogi in me. But hopefully that helps with some of your stretching. I'm serious. If you just spent 5 minutes after each run, you run 3 days a week, you don't have to necessarily do a yoga session. You can if you want, if you have the time. I know we're all busy people, and so maybe consider shaving off half a mile just to spend that time you would have spent with that last half mile of your run, spending that with stretching. I think it's worthwhile. Or just make the time, right? Like wake up 5 minutes earlier before you run and schedule it into your workout, right? Like if I have an hour before I have to go to work and I have an hour to run, 50 minutes of that is running, so that last couple minutes I have can end with stretching, and then I feel better throughout the day. So hopefully you got something out of this video. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you like running, that's what this channel is about, and hopefully you can implement some of this stuff and consider watching another one, and I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.